Hello and welcome to Safe Schools. I'm Commander Curtis Graves with the Mobile Police Department.
I'm Andy Howard with Mobile County Public School System.
Andy, we're going to have a great show because we have someone who's outstanding, and I'm not just being biased because I like her, but,
But that helps, right?
Yeah, Miss Virginia Guy, Drug Education Council, is going to be talking to us today about some things that are very important or should be important to quite a few people in our city.
I think she's a friend of the show and an asset to the community, and I'm looking forward to the show.
We'll be right back.
As a student in the Mobile County Public Schools, there are a few things I've come to expect. One is a quality education, and the other is a quality lunch. Not only are our school meals well balanced, meeting all federal nutritional standards, but they also have less fat, fewer calories, and they taste really good. Oh, and I forgot to mention, our school lunches contain whole wheat, grains, fruits, and vegetables to give me the energy and brain power to get me through the day.
It's a fact. Bullying happens. Bullying can lead to serious physical and emotional pain. But there are some things you can do to prevent or stop it. Stand up for the person who's being bullied. Let the bully know that it's not cool to pick on others. Take action by reporting the bully to a teacher or principal. In the end, when you help someone who's being bullied, you are also helping yourself.
Do you have what it takes to be an Envision graduate? We are pioneering students to be all they can be, from 6th grade all the way to 12th grade.
I definitely would recommend Envision to other students who feel the way I feel. They really work with you, and they've gotten tutors, and you have online teachers to talk to.
It starts right here. It starts right now. Envision Virtual Academy. Enroll today.
And we're back. I am delighted to re-welcome, because this is a friend of the show, Miss Virginia Guy, the Director of the Drug Education Council. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for coming back.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. It's been a good relationship between our show and you, Virginia, because you've always given our audience some things to know and some things to think about. And we appreciate you coming again. But just for the sake of function, I'd like you to share with our audience what the Drug Education Council is and what you do there.
Okay. The Drug Education Council is a community-based prevention agency. We provide prevention, intervention, and recovery support services in South Alabama.
That's a lot of stuff, actually.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And so we've been talking, off screen about the stuff that's going on nowadays. And that's what pops in the top of my head right this second, Virginia, is COVID, and how has that affected you all and the services that you all have been able to provide, and the effect of misuse of drugs as a result of isolation and depression and the just overall atmosphere during and hopefully post-COVID. I'm scared to call it post because I don't know that.
We're hopeful.
Yes.
But yes, everybody knows that we had a drug epidemic, especially an opioid epidemic pre-COVID.
Yes.
And then, of course, when you have that type of epidemic and you lay the pandemic on top of that,
Yes.
It just really caused so many more problems.
Mm-hmm.
When the schools closed, it left kids, unattended. The world was very uncertain. Parents were nervous. There were just so many things that led to increased drug use, to increased levels of anxiety, depression, isolation, all of those things, which aren't good for prevention, and it's also very, very damaging to people that are in recovery, particularly those new in recovery. You know, we saw a tremendous amount of relapse because 12-step meetings weren't able to meet in person. You know, we saw families also, we got a tremendous number of calls. We continued to work during the shutdown, and we got a tremendous number of calls from families that had family members, particularly young adults that maybe had been in college or working somewhere out of town, come home, and they recognized drug problems that they didn't actually know that they had. And because with the, you know, with these young adults around the home more, they realized that they were using, you know, a myriad of drugs.
Having problems and engaged in unsafe conduct.
It was all over the board, everything from, you know, younger kids all the way up, and parents. Parents were incredibly stressed about how their own jobs were going to work during the pandemic. As well as trying to work from home, trying to do school. You know, they would have 3 and 4 devices sometimes going, trying to, you know, keep everybody working and in school. And so it was just it was a time of change and stress. Now, at the same time, there's been some good things that have come out of it. So
we're around each other more. So.
Right, and we were able to get some families to some 12-step groups that maybe they wouldn't have walked in in person, but they felt comfortable maybe Zooming.
Good concern. I mean, one of my questions to that was you all had to adapt to not being in person as much. So that's one of the things that became a product of that?
There's been some good and some bad. I think, you know, we focus so much on the bad. There's been some good that has come out of it too. But I think now our focus is we're getting back, you know, a little more normal, or at least our schedule's a little more consistent. So we're ready to ramp up and provide students with the support that they need, families with the support that they need, and we want to strengthen our prevention messages. If there's any kind of harmful use, we want to intervene early. The earlier we can intervene, and then we want to provide resources. Another good news is that there's a tremendous amount of resources for families if they're struggling with a loved one that's either harmfully using drugs or addicted.
What are some of the new challenges you expect?
I think it's just getting the word out. I think that people seem to be really even a little more open to discussing these types of issues, you know, because of, I was just seeing a study that came out recently about increased overdose deaths and increase in deaths by suicide. And so I think that's something that we absolutely cannot ignore. And so I think people are more willing to talk about that because they're seeing these things with their friends and their family. So I think a lot of people are getting kind of a little bit real about it and are willing to talk about it. So there's not as much of a stigma.
There's so many different concerns I believe that we all have. Especially with the upcoming school year, not alone the fact that we're seeing unprecedented numbers of violent acts being committed in our city and in the country. And a lot of it is associated to this thing that we dealt with, the pandemic. So, you know, I know your job and the work that you all do with the Drug Education Council covers a gamut of issues relative to substance abuse. And how to help navigate all of that, but how difficult do you see it when I say everything opens back up, when school starts back? For example, do you foresee there being increases in issues that you all will be engaged in?
Well, we're ready for that and prepared for that. We're not really sure. We're prepared when students return to school, when educators return to the classroom. You know, we want to be ready to provide whatever support they need, whether it's education, whether it's referral for resources. And, you know, we've got a community that's full of resources for children and families. And so through our United Way partnership, our school partnerships, our partnerships throughout the city with law enforcement and the medical community, we can bring to bear a tremendous amount of resources for students as they return to the classroom.
We're going to take a brief break and we're going to come right back. This is an important conversation. Thanks.
It's a fact. Bullying happens. Bullying can lead to serious physical and emotional pain. But there are some things you can do to prevent or stop it. Stand up for the person who's being bullied. Let the bully know that it's not cool to pick on others. Take action by reporting the bully to a teacher or principal. In the end, when you help someone who's being bullied, you are also helping yourself.
I believe my child's school is probably one of the best ones I could have picked in Mobile. She's in the PACE program. The teachers are phenomenal. The principal, couldn't ask for a better principal. The research that I had done myself, I believe the quality of education in Mobile County Public School System is excellent. For me and my child, I'm going to stick with the public school system. I think it's the way to go.
And we're back. Virginia, I'm going to open Pandora's box, okay?
Okay.
Marijuana and this issue of legalizing marijuana for different reasons, whether it's for recreational use or whether it's for medical use. Where are you? Where do you, I know where you sit, but will you explain it a little bit for us?
One of my biggest concerns is children. And we know the last 10, 15 years, all of the research that's done on the developing brain, we know now how vulnerable a brain of a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old is to developing addiction and having problems later on. We know that 90% of addiction begins in the teen years. We didn't used to know that. We thought that people, you know, their brain was fully developed, and then when they grew up and were in their 20s, they would develop addiction. We know now that that vulnerable brain, so no matter what substance they're using, the brain is far more far more vulnerable to the harmful consequences. They will get addicted more quickly, and they'll have more negative consequences to their use because they haven't had a chance to mature and grow and get educated and have jobs and do all those things that you need in order to get back on the right path. So you don't have quite as much to work with when you're working with an adolescent. So we're very concerned about that. And we're concerned about the mixed messages we're sending to young people. If we tell them these drugs are okay, whether it's alcohol or marijuana or any other drug, it lets other kids hearing that think that, well, it's okay to use. And so we just we want parents, grandparents, educators, everybody who cares about kids to talk to them about the dangers. The longer we can delay the onset of use, the better off that young person's going to be.
And not only that, we're still arresting people for possession of marijuana.
Right.
So it is confusing to a child.
It's confusing to an adult.
Yeah.
It's confusing to me.
Because you got people getting arrested for
Right.
it. You got companies that are saying we won't hire you because of it. But then you got people also saying, well, you got politicians, the government is talking about finding a way to increase access to it. You got doctors talking about treating it as a medication and prescribing it. So to the novice, uninformed person, they hear all of that and say, does that mean it's okay? Or does it mean it's not okay? Depending on which way I want to interpret that information.
That's exactly right. It's confusing for everybody. I think it's for everybody who cares and really looks into it. It's incredibly confusing. So, we want to get the facts out to young people. We want, because it is very clear that there is no good use of those kind of drugs in the developing brain.
No, we talk about the frontal lobe development, and that's what you're talking about right now, and how long it takes for that to fully mature. And that's dependent on whether or not, if there's trauma or other things associated with keeping it from maturing at the proper age. And that's somewhere around 27, I believe.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think it's in the early 20s for girls and the mid 20s for boys.
Yeah.
So, and if we think about our own lives, none of us were, when we look back, you can kind of see how that research, because, a lot of times I look back on my own life and go, what was I thinking, when I was 20, 21. So we can see that,
Absolutely.
in our own lives and in our children's lives. So we need to use that science and really protect our children.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah.
Well, we talked a bit about marijuana, but there's another conversation in terms of people misusing drugs that I have heard around our community. I'm concerned about it. These, I'm just going to call them fake drugs. These, where people are making pills that look like prescription medications, but they're not.
Right. Those are so incredibly dangerous. Anybody buying any kind of drug that looks like a pharmaceutical on the street is in big danger. There is a huge, huge market of these drugs that they've got the presses that can make them look like they're legally produced drugs. You know, the majority of them have all kinds of stuff in them, and the worst is probably the fentanyl and the carfentanil. That stuff is, it's a synthetic opiate. It's very dangerous. It can be extremely deadly. So anytime anybody is buying illegal drugs on the street, it's always been dangerous, but it's more dangerous today than it has ever been.
And what makes me bring it up is because of the deaths that I've heard of. And so this is not, I'm trying to scare somebody just because I'm trying to scare somebody. I want them to be afraid to do this. To think that buying something that looks like a prescription drug on the street, it's not prescribed to you, and you really don't know what you're getting.
Right.
But what you might be getting is something that will kill you.
Right. And you know, these drug dealers are so unscrupulous that they are, you know, they're out to make money, and so the real drugs are actually more expensive than these synthetic drugs, so they can make a lot more money selling these synthetic drugs, but the synthetic ones are so much more powerful and can really kill somebody. And you know, a lot of times it's not just a mistake, you may not get a do-over. I mean, it can truly mean, right. And you know, again, you know, if we've got young adults that have children at home, you know, a lot of that stuff looks like candy. You know, one of the things that we want, you know, that we teach kids is the difference in drugs and candy, and not to put anything in their mouth that they, you know, isn't given to them by their parents. And you know, it's a dangerous world out there when it comes to drugs. And I think that's one of the biggest dangers facing our children and our families today. If we could significantly impact the drug problem, we would significantly impact every other social problem we have, and whether it's crime and violence, whether it's economic insecurity, whether it's low education attainment, health issues, every single issue, family violence. There's a huge component of drug use and addiction related to that social problem.
That's big. We're going to take a brief break, and we're going to come right back and revisit this conversation. We'll be right back.
The Environmental Studies Center is a natural sciences education facility designed to provide unique learning experiences. In addition, wildlife rehabilitation plays a vital role each day at the center. Featuring more than 500 acres of rich woodlands, the center affords teachers, students, and the general public an opportunity to experience firsthand the natural environment. Environmental Studies Center. It starts with us in the Mobile County Public Schools.
Hello, I'm Renee Phillips, your host of Homeroom. Will you join us as we talk with the students, teachers, and staff about all of the great things happening in our schools?
That's right, Renee. Not only are we here to keep you informed about the great things happening in our schools, but to also keep you updated on safety issues.
Our show, Safe Schools, looks at ways to keep your child and our students safe.
Not only are we looking at ways to keep your child and our students safe, but to keep you informed on how to connect with us.
Manténgase informado aquí en Conexión a Padres.
And we also score big from pre-K to high school with MCPSS Athletics.
And then Inside Education puts it all together for you, showing you the ins and outs about news and events taking place across the Mobile County Public School District. We do this to keep you informed.
And we're back. So I'm reminded of Jack Nicholson as the Joker. So serious. It is serious.
It is serious.
Yeah, and we're having a serious conversation about a serious topic, and I'm glad that you're here and available and able to give some serious discussion to the topic that we're talking about. And one of the things I heard you talking about that just resonates with me is how drugs are affecting us across the board. Things that are happening can directly be correlated to the misuse of drugs, the violence, selling and buying drugs, misusing drugs, and weapons. When you look at these young folks and their Facebook pages, it's drugs, money, and guns. Right. And then what has happened, what am I seeing? Deaths from both sides of that. The guns and are killing young folks because of the drugs and the money attached to it. The drugs are killing folks because they're taking drugs. The drugs are causing them harm. That if they live, they're not okay. And of course, if they don't live, they're not okay. So you started down that road when we took the break, but I really want you to continue down that road because I think it is so serious.
Mm-hmm. It is serious, and that's why I think we need to start young, and we need to send clear messages. If parents, educators, the school, the community at large could send a clear, consistent message to these young people that these things are dangerous, that we're here to support you, we're going to do everything we can to help you stay away from that and to protect you from that. There's other opportunities. The school offers so many opportunities in extracurricular activities and sports and things like that that can grab the students' attention and their passion and get them going. There's career opportunity, career development opportunities. There's all kinds of things. So if we can help these kids kind of find their passion, their purpose in life, something that really makes them, give them a hope for the future.
To the on position.
Right. Then, we need to do that as well as telling them the negative things. We need to give them the positive things. And, prevention is one of those things that I tell everybody all the time. It's not very glamorous. You get up every day. It's a consistent message. It's doing the right thing every single day. But if you put enough of those days together, it really is kind of fun. It's a good way to live. It's a healthy way to live. And like I said, we can get these kids to find what, opportunities are out there.
It's liberating. It frees
for them.
you.
It really is. And it's so much. And it frees families of the heartache. It saves the community dollars, in law enforcement costs. And it gives these kids, when we lose a young person, we're losing a lot of potential for our community. We're losing the hopes and dreams. It's more than just the heartache for the family and the tragedy of it all. We're losing a lot of potential in our community. So we need to do everything we can to get these kids. And the good news, too, is that a lot of kids, not all kids are using, a lot of kids are making those good decisions, and they're doing the right thing, and they're getting up every day. So we need to make sure that we're supporting, recognizing those young people, too.
Yeah.
So,
I was talking to a guy yesterday, works for one of those large industries in the area. He said his company is looking to hire 3,000 people, can't find them. And then he told me this story about a guy that shows up and he decides to try to get the job, but he's been taking drugs. And he knows he's likely to fail the drug test. He shaves every bit of hair he can find on his body, trying to avoid. Of course, they did find some hair, and he did not pass the drug test. And all the guy that was talking to me said, all he had to do was stop. Just stop.
Well, there's no doubt we're dealing with new challenges. I mean, when we think about it, right now with the low number of people that businesses have to pull from to hire, they're desperately seeking people, and some are willing to even kind of loosen their requirements along the lines of drug use, unfortunately. And that's not to say that that's for every business, but there are some businesses that feel like they can actually tolerate that. It's not the message that I know you want to support or agree with, nor do I. But you know, what do we do in those situations other than continue to do what you've been doing for many years, and that's just to educate families?
I'm not picking on a person, but it's just an example. Somebody very likely is the fastest person ever in their sport. Yeah. And they're not going to be able to do something they spent their whole life preparing for. Right. For a parent that's out there, what conversation would you have to them? You know, I think about when I was a kid, I couldn't lock my door. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I knew that the door even locked.
Yeah, we, you know, those type of things, particularly with the Olympic athlete and others, those are what we call teachable moments. And that's a great time for parents and anybody, because no matter what we think about that, or whether we think it was right or wrong, that still, you know, she's lost a tremendous amount because of that. And so that's a great conversation to have with your child if they're playing sports or they're doing anything where, you know, they're going to need that in the future. That just it's a great time to put the message of it's just not worth it. Right. I think she would probably say right now that wasn't worth it, because she had trained so hard and worked so hard. So, you know, that's where when we've got kids doing that, we need to make sure that we support them every single step of the way and stay with it all the time. You know, parenting kids today is probably the hardest job anybody could ever do. And so if they need educational information, call us. If they need to talk specifically about their particular family, call us. One thing I'll say, nobody I've ever met has ever meant to become addicted, ever. That whether they start out partying or they start out treating real pain, nobody means to do that. So I want to take the shame and the embarrassment and that thing out of it, and let's fix the problem. Let's intervene. Let's there's a tremendous amount of help available.
Virginia, we have really appreciated you coming out and sharing with us today and with the audience. Andy?
Thanks for being on Safe Schools, and appreciate you.
Thanks for everything y'all do.
Thank you.
Thank you.